Hello, you. Welcome back to the You-tilize, the podcast where we make the human experience a little lighter, a little brighter, and most importantly, a little more you. And today I want to talk about something that most people don't even realize they struggle with: taking up space. Not just physically, but in conversations, in relationships, in the way you move through the world. You see, so many of us, whether because of how we were raised, past experiences, or just the pressures of society, have learned to shrink ourselves, to tone it down, to stay small enough to fit into boxes that were never meant for us. But here's what I want to ask you today. What if your biggest problem isn't that people don't see you? It's that you don't let yourself be seen. Because let's be real, how many times have you stopped yourself from speaking up in a meeting because you didn't want to sound stupid? Or downplayed your passions because you were afraid someone would judge you? Or changed the way you dressed, the way you laughed, the way you express yourself, just to make others more comfortable? I get it. I've been there. And I have a story to share about that today. But here's the truth. I want us all to sit with: your presence is not an inconvenience, and you're not too much. You were never meant to be invisible. So today we're going to unpack why we shrink ourselves, where it comes from, my real life story, or how to speak up, express yourself, and all your passions. That can change everything. And finally, challenge one small, bold, but maybe bold action that you need and that will push you to start showing up fully as yourself. So grab your coffee, tea, or whatever fuels your soul, and let's dive in. So, have you watched a little kid dance in the middle of a room, completely unaware or maybe completely unbothered by who's watching? So they spin, they jump, they belt out their favorite song off key, and they do it because in that moment, it feels good. It feels natural. They aren't thinking, do I look up stupid? Is this embarrassing? What will people think? But somewhere along the way, we'll learn to hesitate. Maybe you were laughed at in school, and when you answered a question wrong, so you started doubting if you should speak up at all. Or maybe you were told that girls shouldn't be loud or boys shouldn't cry. So you muted parts of yourself to fit that mold. Maybe your passion, whether it was dancing, singing, writing, or something else, was once dismissed as not practical or a waste of time. And so you slowly let it go. Let me tell you about someone who lived this: me. I used to play the piano as a kid. I would be very talented in playing. I enjoyed it. And even I was teasing my piano teacher to lend me her rings so I can put them on my tiny fingers and create a real art with music. So just imagine my fingers with huge rings with stones playing the piano. But one day there was an event led by another teacher who I barely knew, an event for parents where all the students could play a bit of piano to demonstrate what we've learned. And guess what? I made a mistake that most probably none of the parents would have recognized. But my teacher did, and she screamed at me in front of my parents. This is a mistake, and this is not good enough. You cannot play the piano like this. You should be focusing on something else. And I remember that I held up my tears. I couldn't even cry because it was so embarrassing that was happening in front of my parents. And you know what I did? I stopped playing the piano completely, forever, because I let someone else's words determine how much space I was allowed to take up in the world. But here's the thing, that teacher was just one person, and that opinion was just a noise. And yet, how often do we let someone's passing comment dictate the choices that we make about our own lives? What if we didn't? What if we decided that we don't need anyone's permission to take up space? Well, nevertheless, once I quit the piano classes, I signed up for acting and discovered that I'm great at it, that I'm born to do art in some ways, whether stage acting or dancing and singing. And luckily, I was surrounded by people who share the same passion with me, encouraging teacher, even though I make mistakes. But you get me. What if you weren't that lucky? And what if, I fully believe that I cannot do anything related to music. You know what's funny? A lot of us want to be seen and appreciated, but at the same time, we're absolutely terrified of it. And I get it. I really do. Because let me tell you something personal. I dance. Today, at age of 44, I'm dancing wildly, sensually, freely, authentically. And I love it. It's not my profession. It's not something I was trained to do at an elite level school, but it's something that sets me on fire. And ideally, if I'm able to become a dance facilitator soon, it will be just awesome. Recently, I started filming my dance videos. Sounds simple, right? But let me tell you, the first time I hit record and saw myself on screen, every insecurity screamed at me. Wow, how my body looks, how my legs look at, oh, my belly. Wow, the fear I felt. What will people think about it? What if I look ridiculous when I dance? What if people judge me for doing something I love? They would say, you look awkward. Who do you think you are? What if people judge you? And for a moment, I almost let those voices win. I almost deleted the videos before anyone could see it. But then I thought, so what? And those are the two magical words. So what? So what if someone doesn't like it? So what if it's not perfect? I love it. I love it. And that should be enough. And let me tell you, since I stopped caring what people think, I've never felt freer. I dance as myself and I express my soul through my body. So let me ask you, what is one thing you've been holding back from because you're afraid of what people will say? Is it posting your art? Is it launching your own business? Is it speaking up more in conversations? Is it just walking with your head held high instead of looking down? Because listen, the people who judge you are often the ones who are afraid to do what you're doing. Don't shrink for them. They will catch up later. And here's what I realize. The people who judge you for taking up space are the ones who are afraid to take up space themselves. I'm sure you have some examples of a co-worker who rolls their eyes when you speak up in a meeting. They probably wish they had the courage to speak. The friend who makes this snide comments about your passion project. Well, they probably wish they had the guts to follow theirs. Or maybe you have an example of those people who gossip about you behind your back. They probably wish they had the confidence to live unapologetically. So what? What if instead of fearing judgment, you saw it for what it is? A reflection of someone else's limitations, not yours. And here's a challenge. Think of something you love but avoided doing because of fear. Something related to art, maybe. Is it painting, singing? Maybe it's wearing what you actually like instead of what's acceptable. Or public speaking. Oh my gosh, I'm doing this podcast. And I even started shooting videos on TikTok today talking about crystals. And yes, it's a big deal for me because it's uncomfortable a lot. But I decided not to shrink anymore. I decided to embrace the purpose of sharing my gifts so it could reach at least one person in this gigantic planet who would need to hear or see what I have to share. Well, now, ask yourself, who are you shrinking for? And why do they matter so much? And here's the controversial part. It's not the world making you small. It's you choosing to accept it. Okay, I know that's too much, but let that sink in. Now, am I saying society, culture, and past experiences don't play a role? Of course not. But at some point, we choose to shrink. Maybe it was easier. Maybe it felt safer. Maybe we thought it would keep the peace. But here's a brutal truth. When you make yourself small, you become invisible. And when you become invisible, people will treat you as if you don't matter. Because the truth is, when you shrink yourself, people stop seeing you. They overlook you. They dismiss you. And not because you're not valuable, but because you're not making yourself visible. And I'm not saying you weren't conditioned that way. We all were. But at some point, we internalized it. We took on the belief that blending in is safer than standing out. So let me ask you, what has playing small actually given you? Just think about that. What has playing small actually given you? Or has it brought you joy? Has it made you feel alive? Or has it just made you disappear? Contemplate on this. Like, really spend time and contemplate. Ask those questions to yourself. And here we come to something that's very much relevant to what we internalize often, the lies we accept. Obviously, that needs to stop. This might be uncomfortable, but let's go there. And stay with me. I will wrap this up in the end. So, how many times have you ignored a lie because it was easier than dealing with the truth? For example, the partner who swears that nothing happened, even though you know deep down in your gut that something happened. Or maybe the boss who says, hey, we will promote you. You just need to wait another 2 months or by the end of the quarter, just to see the numbers. You know that you're hearing this for years. Or maybe the friend who only tells you half of the story, but you let it slide because calling them out feels exhausting. Maybe the voice in your own head that whispers you're not good enough, even though you know it's not true. And here's the thing, lies don't just sit still, they grow, they multiply, they become your reality. And the worst part is, if someone lies to you, even if it's you, if someone lies to you once, it gets away with it, they'll do it again. So if you lie to yourself, you'll do that again and again and again. And when we accept the lies, we're silently giving them permission to keep going. So ask yourself right now, where am I accepting dishonesty? Or what am I tolerating that I know it's not okay? And why am I pretending that I don't see what's right in front of me? So this applies to your relationships, your career, most importantly, the lies you tell yourself. Because let's be real, we lie to ourselves all the time. It's not that bad. I can deal with this. Maybe they didn't mean it. No, stop. If you have to convince yourself to stay in a situation, that's your answer right there. It's time to start speaking up. So you need to hear this. Your voice is a weapon against deception. People don't want you to speak up because speaking up forces them to be accountable. Whether it's in relationships, it forces honesty. In work, it forces recognition. In life, it forces reality. And when you start calling things out, the lies, the manipulation, the things you've been pretending not to see, people will either respect you or fear you, but they will never ignore you again. And here is, where it gets tricky. Speaking up means standing alone sometimes. And that's why most people don't do it. Because it's easier to go along than to change, that narrative. So let me ask you, are you willing to lose people if it means finding your truth? Are you ready to be labeled difficult or intimidating or dominant if it means standing in your power? Would you rather be uncomfortable for a moment or stuck for a lifetime? And I know you already know the answer. You've always known it. So the real question is, are you ready to stop betraying yourself? Because every time you silence your voice when it wants to speak, every time you shrink when your soul wants to expand, every time you accept lies, whether from others or from yourself, you are betraying the part of you that was born to take up space in this world. And let me tell you something I've learned. You will never be at peace with yourself if you keep betraying the version of you that wants to be seen, heard, and felt. I will repeat that again. You will never be at peace with yourself if you keep betraying the version of you that wants to be seen, heard, and felt. So what do we do? How do we unlearn years, maybe decades of shrinking? How do we find the power of choosing ourselves every day? Well, I can suggest step one, to give yourself permission. Stop waiting for someone else to choose you. Stop waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to take up space. It's okay to be loud. It's okay to be different. It's okay to say, this is who I am, and I refuse to hide anymore. No one is coming to hand you permission. You have to give it to yourself. Right now, Literally, say it. I give myself permission to take up space. I give myself permission to be seen. I give myself permission to exist fully. Say it again if you have to. Write it down. Stick it on your mirror, on your computer. Make it your phone wallpaper. I don't care how you do it, but it needs to be said. Because if you don't believe it, you will keep waiting for the world to tell you you're allowed to exist. And that will never happen. I will suggest step 2 too. Start noticing the lies. You know what's tricky? Lies don't always show up in big, obvious ways. Sometimes they come in whispers, disguised as logic, wrapped in self-doubt. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. Maybe this is not meant for me. Do you know how many people never do the thing they want to do because they believed one of these lies? A million? Probably more. So today, I want you to start paying attention. Every time you tell yourself something that be aware and stop. Question it. Ask yourself, is this a fact or is this just fear wearing a disguise? Because here's what I know for sure. Fear will keep you in the same place for the rest of your life if you let it. So step 3, start now. That's right. The very now. Now. Start now. We've talked about this long enough. Okay, now it's time to do something about it. So here's my challenge for you, because knowing this stuff is useless unless you actually apply it and practice it. So today, I want you to take up space physically, emotionally, vocally, in whatever way feels right for you. Do you need some ideas? Well, if you're in a meeting and have an idea, say it out loud. If you're afraid to post that thing one line because what will people think? Post it anyway. Just post it. If you usually mumble or lower your voice, speak like you mean, like just say what you want to say and be confident. If you're an artist, a writer, a creator, show your work, even if it's imperfect. If you love to dance, like me, dance. Even if people are watching, just go out. Dance in the park, dance in the streets, dance in the mall. Especially if people are watching. Dance, just do it. And listen, I know this feels uncomfortable. I've been there, I am there. I know that always will be there. But growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. You have to stretch yourself beyond what feels safe. That's where expansion lives. And I will leave you with this. You are not a mistake. The divine creator never makes mistakes. You are worthy just because you exist. There is no other reason. It's as simple as that. You're not too much. You're not too loud. You're not an inconvenience. You're here to be seen, to be heard, to take up every ounce of space that belongs to you, to share the gifts you have with others. That's the main purpose of all human becomings. And if someone tells you otherwise, that's their problem, not yours. So take up space today, do something bold. And when you do, tell me about it. Message me, comment. I really want to know how it felt. Because this is just the beginning. Until the next time, keep showing up for yourself. Goodbye, you.